I have been asked to give some information about the ongoing partnership agreement negotiations. I will brief you on this, and afterwards I will briefly speak about the reform of the EU cohesion policy for 2014-2020, and then go into more details about the condition for EU structural funding in the area of culture. Coming back to the PA, all the procedure of the PA and operational program process need to be closely followed. This includes the Regio internal process of assessment of member states, self-assessment of fulfillment of ex-ante conditionalities, and of course the partnership agreement. The situation, actually, we are in an informal period of negotiation, so a dozen partnership agreement has been analyzed so far, covering 7 of the 11 thematic objectives and over 80% of ERDF and cohesion fund investment fields. I would give out 4 general considerations about what we have seen until now. Most of the partnership agreement reviews are early draft, which requires substantial additional work to get to sound strategic documents, which deserve the billion that they are asking for, with no or little description of lessons learned from previous programming period. As a frequent weakness is absence of a sound investment rationale. Many member states struggle to provide clear priorities and objectives in line with clearly identified gaps. The absence of clear thematic concentration, in particular, is a recurring issue. We find the superposition, I think you say that in English, of sectoral slides written by different ministries without an overall strategic vision. There is still a poor description of synergy with European territorial cooperation and macro-regional program, as well as with other EU funds. The situation today, I would say we get 1/3 of the PA that are green, 1/3 amber, and 1/3 red of the one we have seen. So this is for the first point. So what are we talking about is the first point. Culture and creative industry are in a strategic position to promote smart, sustainable and inclusive growth in all EU regions and cities. With the development of the last year and lessons learned from the past, a number of important general elements have been set for reforming the EU cohesion policy and for the use of the fund during the next financial period. First, investment should focus on key areas for growth and jobs as outlined in the Europe 2020 strategy. This will be done through a common set of rules applicable to all 5 structural and investment funds: ERDF, Cohesion Fund, European Agricultural Fund for Rural Development, European Maritime and Fishery Funds. Second, the majority of the budget should be concentrated on few priorities closely linked to the EU 2020 growth strategy. In particular, 50 to 80% of the ERDF budget should be concentrated on measures to support innovation and research and development, the digital agenda, the competitiveness of SMEs, and shift towards a low-carbon economy. On low-carbon economy, there is a further obligation to allocate at least 12 to 20% to energy efficiency and renewable energy. And third, EU member states and regions should establish clear and measurable targets on the impact of the investments. Progress is to be measured and communicated. Fourth, measures should be introduced to cut red tape and to simplify the use of EU funds. This includes more targeted but fewer reporting demands and the better use of digital technology by what we call e-cohesion. In fact, is a one-stop shop to access to the funds. Let us now move to the use of structural funds in the area of culture and speak about the impact of the EU cohesion policy for 2014-2020 on culture. That's it. So here I present simply what is the earmarking of culture in the last programming period. So 2007-2014, we have 6 billion allocated on projects that have a connection with culture. So if you see the numbers are important, of course, it's only 2% of the budget, but it's really an important number. What you can see is the 797 million for assistance to improve cultural service. This is a figure that we want to increase, and we want absolutely to increase in the future. As you see, 2.2 billion in infrastructure, the difference is very important. Over the years, we have seen more and more funding requests linked to culture, projects to promote the networking of companies into creative clusters, development of creativity incubators in city and region, or even the output of service checks for innovation and design service linked to culture, of course. One should note that the creative economy is not as such explicitly named in the new regulatory text. However, culture has been integrated into many priorities and thematic objectives. Culture is not directly mentioned among the investment priorities of the new regulation. Investment in the field of culture can be supported under a number of other investment priorities. Yes, I think I have it there. I've made a mistake. I go one back. Okay. I'm a little bit lost in this slide machinery, but okay, let's go. I think okay, I was here, sorry. Go back. Okay, so investment in tourism and culture can contribute to these points. So it's to the thematic objective 1, 2, 3, 6, 8, and 9. Although it's technical, but as I explained before, we don't focus on culture, but culture is introduced in the thematic objective. It's not an objective per se. So my fourth point was linking thematic objective to culture. And so I will talking before on infrastructure. So infrastructure should be primarily examined with a view to their potential to contribute to SMEs development or innovation and as part of a wider urban regeneration of social inclusion efforts, in particularly for marginalized community. In all cases, when considered for financing, they should be aligned with related strategy. Large-scale investment in sport should not be supported. Only small-scale infrastructure providing recreational service, which includes sports in order to promote social inclusion or combat poverty, particularly among marginalized communities, may be supported. Investment in the renovation of historical buildings or buildings renovation of cultural institutions should only be a priority if it's part of an overall economic development strategy of a specific territory or town, or foster the socio-economic integration of minority through valorizing their cultural background. The second part are economic activities. So culture and creative industry include a diverse collection of business disciplines that have both a cultural and economic impact, in particularly architecture, web and graphic design, performing arts, publishing, video, games, multimedia, we talked before about that, music, arts, antiques, artistic crafts, fashion design as well, film, TV, radio production, advertising, and public relation. Their support may be included in SME or innovation or ICT-related measure. I was talking, it was thematic objective 1 or 2. The new draft regulation has added e-culture, so digital content related to culture and digital challenge and digital heritage, to the investment priority concerning the strengthening of ICT application. In fact, in ICT, you have two streams. The one is broadband investing. I call that digging ditches, mainly. This is important, but the other part that is mostly underestimated is the content part. And this is really important, and as we have a digital agenda and a scoreboard who is indicating the quantity and the quality of broadband in the member state, on the same we should have probably a scoreboard for culture or contents, but this is not possible as culture is not in the treaty. I mean, it's in the treaty, but as we know how it is. Okay, so investment in culture and creative industry are subject to state aid rules. This is important, depending on the context, SMEs, regional aid, or sectorial specific rules. I give as an example cinematography and audiovisual work as an example. Same goes for sport and tourism industry. Investment in culture that do not have sustainable economic impact should not be a priority for the next programming period. Maintaining and renovating the cultural heritage, I will not speak specifically about e-heritage or e-heritage project, but the cultural heritage also represents a challenge in itself, but can have positive impacts on craft and traditional sectors of industry as well as tourism. For instance, in terms of coastal tourism, the maintenance and renovation of cultural heritage can bring positive economic impacts at its help offering diversified activity through the year, fighting seasonality or seasonality. Given the high dependency of some EU regions on tourism, not only support for higher added value, innovation, and better environmental sustainability, but diversification could be fostered to overcome dependency on low added value temporary work and ensure economic activity and job outside the touristical season. The current draft regulation refers to investment only in sustainable tourism, culture and natural heritage, and make that dependent on their contribution to employment, friendly growth, and being part of a territorial strategy, including for the conversion of declining industrial region. Support for this activity should also contribute to strengthening innovation and the use of ICT, SMEs, environment and resource efficiency of the promotion of social inclusion. A parenthesis on sport. I mean, a lot of you are in ministry where there is not only culture but sport. It has linked together historically. Sport activity include both grassroots and professional activities. For instance, relating to tourism, health, or to entertainment industry, but also manufacturing of sports equipment. I will come back to that with an example. Investment into sport activities in how do you say? Investment into sport activities can contribute to stimulate growth and employment. Investment in further specialization in sport-related industry could therefore be envisageable so as to realize, for instance, sport tourism-related growth potential. I will bring back an example in Sweden about that is really interesting. It's a link even to research and development. Okay, I will go as fast as possible. Thank you. So productive investment in SMEs linked to sport activity should only be financed if they create self-sustained job and represent at least an equal prospect of successful outcome as other potential business projects. I will go. So in some of the less favored and peripheral region in particular with underdeveloped industrial structure and often heavily dependent on tourism, innovating in this sector and valorizing their cultural heritage, sometimes including the help of new internet-related technology, has been proven as an effective development strategy. In many regions, there is also the scope for developing high value-added tourism in niche market in emerging fields like health tourism, silver economy, giving as an example cultural and environmental tourism, painting and language stage, Santiago de Compostela itinerary, birds and star watching, gastronomy, tourism valorizing local green product and cuisine, including wine, discovering and tasting, sport tourism, including growing fields like adventure tourism, diving, sailing, imagine what you want. I give an example for urban regeneration. It's another chapter. Culture-related investment have been shown to have a significant positive impact when conceived as part of a wider effort for integrated urban development. To note that according to RDF regulation, at least 5% of the RDF's resources allocated at national level shall be allocated to integrated action for sustainable urban development. Culture can be an element of the strategy to revitalize socially deprived area, and specific issues may also be addressed, such as the adaptation of energy efficiency measure in historical buildings or of city centers for preserving cultural heritage. So it's infrastructure, but in another way. So promoting innovation is another point, is what I was telling you before. I mean, this is a good example of smart specialization, the Swedish Winter Sport Research Center. And the idea is that they have even made a link with other ERDF-supported projects in the field of research and development related to winter sport. In fact, this has included cross-disciplinary research related to technology for sport and adventure and relation in advanced clothing and ski equipment. So the link between sport, culture, research and development and product to the market. I will quit all this project that I have on the presentation will be available afterwards, or I will give you an address where to find them. So the other point was promoting social inclusion. I will shortly go on that. So cultural infrastructure and sport infrastructure, I've already said, can be financed if they are embedded in overall economic development strategic framework. I mean, it can be in urban and rural context. This is not a problem. It could be action for children with a disadvantaged background or participation in sport, cultural and social after-school activities, as this is an effective method to boost their well-being and social mobility. Last one, I have a list of already funded projects in sectorial diversification. This is another way to see that. Here I have 4 best practices in the cultural and creative sector, mainly. So, on promoting entrepreneurship, there is culture and sport-related investment have also been shown to contribute to the promotion of entrepreneurship and could be financed in the next programming period. Now that I gave you a number of positive examples, let me run to lessons from the past and the important issue of result orientation. I would say I would not skip it, but of course you can read them. It is clear from the past experience that some investment in the wider cultural field have failed to achieve any significant economic impact and shed a negative light on our policy. These mainly refer to projects that were not grounded in a sound economic rationale and without a clear concept and how the project would be sustainable. These are all cases with a very questionable, if any, value realized in terms of socio-economic impact. In the case of hotels, because I told you hotels shouldn't be financed, there are some exceptions, of course. They can, that are mentioned here, but such investments should take account of their economic spillover effect in the whole area in terms of employment, enterprise, and the economic activity outside the season of tourism, as an example, and the financial sustainability. I will finish now with a chapter on cultural and creative industry and smart specialization strategy with some recommendation. We will pay particular attention to using culture and creative industry to design and implement targeted implementation strategy on the delivering of Europe 2020 objective. In particular, we will pay attention to these points and running through them, I mean, it's not so important. It's a little bit a resume of what I've just said. Time is running short. I have a list of guidance material that could be useful to local, regional authority and management authorities. This is a fact sheet on smart specialization. There is a risk guide developed by the Commission on smart specialization that worth reading through. Innovation for green economy, the smart guide to innovation-based incubator, one of service innovation that is really well done and practical with do's and don'ts. The European agenda for culture, this work plan is on the net, really, really useful. And I have other manual and links useful. And I would like to conclude by underlining that regional policy is an investment in your human and natural capital, your enterprises, your research and development. It is an investment in growth and job in your regions. The new cohesion policy offers an array of options and instruments. As we are finalizing the detail of the legal framework and start the formal negotiation of the partnership agreement before end of the year, it is now down to the member state to make cohesion policy intervention a success. It's also up to you to ensure that the European Structural and Investment Fund are injected in the real economy, including